And when it's all together, add it up. See if it's all beyond a reasonable doubt. And at the end of this trial, they'll return to you and they'll ask you to make a couple jumps, to make an extra leap, just for them. But ladies and gentlemen, if you give them an inch, they'll take a life. Thank you. You saw Dawson the day before you started your shift, or that day earlier before you started your shift, correct?
Yes.
And after you got there, you immediately concluded that she was an alcoholic, isn't that right?
I mean, yes, I did. Who else would start drinking that early?
Objection, Your Honor. This question calls for speculation.
He said this earlier on direct.
Your Honor, if I may respond. That Mr. Lawrence was just making an observation, sort of just implying that somebody that's drinking all during the day, just a casual reference to it.
Well, let's let him elaborate on what you brought out.
All right, thank you.
So you immediately concluded after you met Miss Dawson that she was an alcoholic?
Yes.
And you had never spoken to Miss Dawson before, isn't that correct?
No.
You had?
That's correct. I
Okay.
never spoken.
Now, you mentioned Miss Dawson putting back half a dozen drinks.
Yes.
You didn't serve her a single one of those.
No, the bartender, Jordan James, was serving.
And you didn't watch her drink a single one of those.
Well, I didn't, but Jordan James also told me how he doesn't drink on the job, especially during the day, so.
You
who
said it was
else
a
would-
possibility. I'm sorry.
Who
You-
else would have drank, consumed those beverages?
You said it was a possibility that Jordan James could have, though, didn't you?
Sure. It's possible, but not probable.
However, you met him for the first time that day.
That's correct.
So you knew him for less than 2 hours at this point.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, it so happened that before your shift started, Miss Dawson accidentally spilled her drink on you.
That's correct.
And this was just the start of what was about to be a very busy night. It was the night of September 24th was a Friday night.
Yes.
And this was your first time on the job.
Yes.
And there was a very popular band playing.
Correct.
So it would be fair to say that this bar was quite crowded.
Yes.
And now, you don't remember Taylor and Vanessa very well from that night, isn't that correct?
No, I don't.
In fact, it's been over a year now since you last spoke to Danny or Taylor.
That's correct.
Now, you didn't swear in your affidavit until October 3rd of this year.
Yes.
And at no point in your affidavit do you even ascribe to Miss Dawson a solid number of drinks, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
No further questions.
Can you redirect?
Just testified upon has not been entered into evidence in this court of law.
I would like to enter it into evidence if opposing counsel does not object.
Your Honor, I believe that the state just rested their line of questioning.
That's fine. It should have been done immediately thereafter. I'm going to sustain the objection.
And Your Honor, we'd ask that the state be allowed to retrieve their documentation and allow the witness to return to her seat. Thank you. I'm sorry, Dr. Smith, you testified that you're the Midlands Director of Forensics Toxicology, is that correct?
I'm the head director of the Department of Forensics.
Okay. And you helped establish the rules for breathalyzer procedures in the state of Midlands?
Correct.
Okay. And one of those very important rules is a 15-minute pre-observation period, is that correct?
Correct, that's protocol.
And that's because, these tests are a little bit volatile and such external factors can skew the results, right?
They can be, but it would be noticeable in the test after I've taken it.
Right, and some of these factors are like the presence of mouth alcohol.
Yes, which would cause a spike in the sample, which would be seen, and then something would be done to prevent it.
And mints.
Yeah, that's something that causes mouth alcohol.
What about mouthwash?
Yes.
And burping?
and vomiting and anything else that could cause mouth alcohol.
Okay. And so this 15-minute period is very important to ensure none of these occur and happen so the test is not effective, correct?
Correct, it's just a pre-observational period before the sample begins.
And Dr. Smith, you in fact did not observe Ms. Dawson for that 15-minute period, did you?
I observed Miss Dawson for about 5 minutes, I believe. Officer Foster had observed him to perform the protocol 3-field sobriety test that day, the night when the accident occurred. And it was a 20-minute ride to my office. I trusted Officer Foster when he said that the defendant had no contact with anything that would produce mouth alcohol or vomiting or burping.
All right, this time I'll request permission to approach counsel. Let the record reflect that I'm in counsel. Copy of the Midlands Police Department Forensic Section and Toxilizer 8000 Operators Checklist. And, Your Honor, at this time I'll request permission to approach the witness. Dr. Smith, you recognize this document?
Yes.
And you recognize this document as the Midlands Police Department Intoxilizer 8000 Operators Checklist?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would request to enter into evidence the Midlands Department Intoxilizer 8000 Operators Checklist as Defense Exhibit A. Permission to approach and tender. Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Smith, if you don't mind, I'm going to read aloud right here, and if you could just follow along for me, please. Dr. Smith, under the operational checklist, it says pre-test observational period, and that box is marked, isn't it correct?
Correct.
In that box, it says the operator is certain that the subject has not ingested any substance by mouth, eating, drinking, smoking, vomited or regurgitated liquid from the stomach to the mouth for at least 15 minutes before the testing commences.
Yep.
And Doctor,
Got it.
you were the operator, correct?
I was the operator, but this was not the time that I told you that I conducted the sample.
Okay.
This was the observational period that Ryan Foster had the defendant.
Yes, I'm sorry, Doctor. Let me be clear. You were the operator of that test, correct?
Yeah, I performed the test.
Not Officer Foster.
No.
And this checklist says the operator is certain that the subject has not done these activities. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I was certain.
Thank you. Permission to retrieve from the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Dr. Smith, we know that the human body has alcohol-producing enzymes such as isopropyl alcohol enzyme or ADH enzyme.
Correct.
Did you test Ms. Dawson for any of those enzymes?
I would have no need to test her for those enzymes.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Your Honor, we have no further questions.
Can you redirect?
You knew Dawson prior to this day, correct?
Yes.
And have you ever known Miss Dawson to drink and drive?
Not to my knowledge, but I can't really speak for all of the times that she's been drunk.
And did you have any reason to believe that on that particular night she would drink and drive?
Well, yes, she said she was going to be the designated driver, and she was obviously drinking throughout the night.
But Miss Dawson sobered up significantly from the time that she said that when she left. Isn't that right?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
May I rephrase? Did Miss Dawson seem more sober when she left than she had when she made that comment?
Yes, but she was still pretty obviously buzzed, and it wasn't a good idea for her to drive.
But she had sobered up.
A bit, I suppose.
Thank you. No further questions.
Can you redirect?
I'm Dr. Ashley Norton. I am president of the American Board of Forensic Toxicology as well as a professor professor of medicine at Midland State University.
Now, can you describe your occupational background?
Yes, I was a research assistant at MIT when I just first started out, and then I became an alcohol program coordinator, a breath testing specialist, and adjunct professor of experimental alcohol
Now,
research.
can you describe your educational background?
Yes, I got a bachelor's degree in chemistry from Brown University and a master's and a doctorate from Johns Hopkins University in forensic science.
Have you written any recognizable publications?
Yes, I co-authored an article called Applications of the Whitmark Formula, Today's Chemistry in the Ethanol and Forensics Journal, as well as many others.
And did you review the evidence in this case?
Yes,
Are these things generally relied upon by experts in your field?
yes,
Did you come to any conclusions in this case?
yes.
And what were those conclusions?
I concluded that because the Intoxilyzer 8000 is so flawed, we cannot trust its results.
And are these conclusions to a reasonable degree of medical certainty and probability?
Yes.
Now, how did you become involved with this case?
The defense team contacted me with the test results and asked me to see if there were any errors.
And how many cases had you testified in?
Over 100.
And in the majority of these cases, what was your testimony regarding?
The defense.
So, how familiar would you say you are with the breath alcohol concentration analysis machine?
I'm very familiar with it. I am actually trained as a technician and operator of the Intoxilyzer 8000.
And how accurate are these machines?
They are not as accurate as people would like you to believe. They have many inherent flaws.
And now, how did you analyze the case in question today?
I used the formula put in place by Dr. Ian P. Whitmark in the early 20th century. He came up with a formula based on an individual's blood alcohol concentration and rate of ethanol elimination and many other factors. And I altered it a little bit to fit our purposes.
Did you review any other documents in this case?
I conferred with Danny Dotson about the events of the night and tried to see exactly what she had drunk and exactly how the test was implemented.
And what did you find after reviewing this case?
I found that the result of 0.19 is very off because it was calculated with a set blood to breath ratio of 2100 to 1 by using the Intoxilyzer 8000. And really, the ratio should have been about 1100 to 1 because she was in the process of elimination. And during that process, an individual may blow a higher breath alcohol concentration when really it should be the same.
And how would mouth alcohol affect the results of the machine?
Well, if the person being tested had burped or vomited or anything of that nature before taking the test, it will register on the machine. And often, the machine will pick up on this and it will spike and then drop and an error message will occur. But in this case, clearly it did not. And a little bit of mouth alcohol can go a long way because you have to multiply it by a conversion factor of 100.
And how would low blood sugar affect the results of the machine?
Low blood sugar can also drive up the result because it just also registers as alcohol when really there's none. It's harmless.
And And what was your final expert medical opinion regarding this case?
I found that Miss Dawson was not grossly intoxicated. She could not have had a BAC of 0.19 as the tests indicate.
Thank you, doctor. No further questions.
Mayor Bridgman. Now, your testimony relies upon the Whittemark formula,
Yes.
and for
Permission to proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and occupation for the members of the jury?
Yes, my name is Leslie Roman, and I'm professional engineer and owner of Expert Accident Reconstruction Incorporated, located in the Midlands.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. And Mr. Roman, could you tell the jury a little bit about your occupational background?
Sure. From 2003 to the present, I have worked at Expert Accident Reconstruction Incorporated. From 1998 to 2003, I worked at Global Motors Incorporated, and from 1993 to 1998, I worked at the Department of Motor Vehicles for the Midlands.
Thank you so much, Mr. Roman. And Mr. Roman, would you please tell the court just a little bit about your educational background?
Of course. I got my bachelor's in engineering at the University of Texas, and then went on to 7 years of additional schooling in the practice of accident reconstruction.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Roman, do you have any certifications?
Yes, I am a professional engineer, and I also have an accreditation certification in traffic accident reconstruction.
And Mr. Roman, did you review all the evidence in this case?
Yes, I did.
And is the evidence that you have reviewed normally relied upon by experts in your field?
It is.
And were you able to reach a conclusion in your findings?
Yes, I was.
And was the conclusion you reached, Mr. Roman, within a degree of scientific certainty or probability?
Very much so.
Thank you, sir. Your Honor, at this time, the defense would move for the court to recognize Leslie Roman as an expert in accident reconstruction. Now, Mr. Roman, how did you first become familiar with this case today?
I was called by defense team to reconstruct Danny Dawson's account of what happened on the night of the accident.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roman. And were you given any information prior to taking this case?
Yes, I was actually one. Not if I didn't want to take the case, I didn't have to, because the girl who passed on, her mother was the district attorney, and if she tends to be a little ruthless in her judgments, always looking for justice swiftly, and sometimes takes that out on other people. So they understood if I did not want to participate in a court case.
And Mr. Roman, why did you ultimately decide to take this case?
Because I wanted to make sure that justice was done and that someone was not killed for improper reasons.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Roman, did you create any documents in this case?
Yes, I did. I compiled an expert reconstruction report detailing what happened according to Danny Dawson.
And permission to approach opposing counsel, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Let the record reflect, Your Honor, I'm providing counsel a copy of Leslie Roman's expert accident reconstruction. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Mr. Roman, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
And can you please tell the court what that document is?
Yes, this is the reconstruction report I was talking about earlier that I compiled for this case.
And is that a fair and accurate copy, Mr. Roman?
Yes, it is.
At this time, Your Honor, the defense requests to enter into evidence Leslie Roman's expert accident reconstruction report as Defense Exhibit C.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
Permission to approach and tender to the clerk, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Roman, would you please tell the jury a little bit about the findings in your report?
Sure. I compiled this report by going over the FCT report as well as affidavits from many members who were in the crash and the officer on the scene, Ryan Foster. I took several photographs and attached them to the report as well as a diagram depicting what I found to be what happened that night. I also went in to my using the Windsor-Strasberg method to come up with the approximated speed that Danny Dawson was traveling when she exited the roadway and the assessment of damage that was done.
Thank you. And permission to approach and retrieve it?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Permission to approach present counsel, Your Honor?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that presenting counsel with a copy of Leslie Roman's expert accident reconstruction diagram. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Roman, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And can you please tell the court what this document is?
This is the diagram that I attached to my reconstruction report depicting what I observed throughout, what I think happened on the night of the accident.
All right. Thank you. And is that a fair and accurate copy, Mr. Roman?
Yes, it is.
This time, Your Honor, the defense requests to move Leslie Roman's expert accident reconstruction diagram as a defense exhibit B. Permission to approach and tender a copy of the report?
Yes.
This time, Your Honor, we would ask permission to set up a demonstrative piece of evidence.
Your Honor, I object. This demonstrative was not shown to us in captain's meeting.
What's, do you want to make them aware of this?
Your Honor, this piece of demonstrative was just entered into evidence by yourself in this court with no objections. I find it odd that counsel would like to object now at this point in time when she did not object to the evidence itself.
I'm not objecting to the piece of evidence as it was provided to us. However, we have not looked at the demonstrative. We don't know what it is. It was not shown to us in captain's meeting.
Is there a rule
I
pertaining?
believe it's in the stipulations.
All right. This, I understand both sides of this, that the demonstrative wasn't presented to you all in the captain's meeting, and although this has been entered into evidence, it was not the opposing counsel or the prosecution had time to make sure that this is indeed exactly what's on the demonstrative.
Your Honor, I have the stipulations in this case, and I see nowhere where it says that we're required to provide counsel a piece of demonstrative evidence prior to the case starting. As well, Your Honor, this demonstrative is an actual diagram from Leslie Roman's expert accident report, and I believe counsel, as well as us, has stipulated prior to the case that all the photos and diagrams in that report are fair and accurate. So this is merely an enlargement of that diagram, Your Honor.
I understand that.
It may simply be in the ANTA rules.
I believe it is an integral rule that all demonstratives are supposed to be viewed by both teams at the captain's meeting. If I'm not mistaken, that's how we did it when
Can this be corroborated at this time, Your Honor?
And is this something that's something you're really wanting to keep out from them using the demonstrative? Or is it something you want to look over quickly?
I would like to at least have the opportunity to look at it.
Okay.
Certainly.
At all demonstratives that plan to be used from here on in.
All right, let's do that really quickly.
Just ask for a quick moment to approach counsel with the demonstrative.
You all,
And this is simply a very small enlargement of the defense exhibit that we've just entered into evidence.
Are there any others?
This is an
Okay.
certainly apologize. I believe counsel is stipulated, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'll
all right.
And, sorry,
Then, just on a side note really quick, that that's something you'll want to make sure of beforehand. I know it used to be that way.
Thank you. Permission to just briefly set up the easel on the
Yes.
marshal. And, Your Honor, at this time, the defense would request that Mr. Roman be allowed to step down from the witness box and approach the diagram.
Yeah, I would ask that you make the diagram visible to opposing counsel.
Where do you best suggest, Your Honor? I'd like for you, Your Honor, and the jury to be able to see it.
I mean, if you want to just pull it back, I'm sure she can move where she would like to move where she can see it. All right, that's
Be okay?
fine, yeah. Just so that everybody's on the same page.
Permission for our witness to step down and approach the diagram, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Roman, could you please step over here?
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Roman, I can just get you to stand by the diagram.
Sure, of course.
And, Mr. Roman, can you please explain this diagram and its findings to the court?
Sure. If you look here, the car is the 2009 Chevy Impala is represented by this little car. Danny Dawson was driving about 51 miles per hour across here. He sees something in the roadway and swerves out of the way, and there are skid marks on the road showing consistency with driving out of the way to miss oncoming object. He drives in rutting grass for about 124 feet and then tries to re-enter the roadway. At this point, the driver overcorrects in the steering and starts to spin. And then here, where the guardrail is not, the car goes down into the ditch, hits the utility pole, spins, and then smacks into the tree that is there.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. And you had just explained where the guardrail is not.
Yes.
Where does the guardrail rest today, Mr. Roman?
Well, the guardrail was actually extended way past, including the area where the car went off now, and the trees around that area have all been cut down as well.
And, Mr. Roman, in your professional expert opinion, what would have happened in that automobile accident had that guardrail been extended?
Objection, Your Honor, the question calls for speculation. I understand he's an expert, but
Your Honor, I would first argue as an improper objection, and secondly, I would argue that this witness has been in fact tendered as an expert in accident reconstruction, and my question does pertain to accident reconstruction.
You aren't asking about accident reconstruction, you are asking about accident prediction. What would have happened? As an expert reconstructionist, yes, he can go back with the facts he has. He cannot create a new scenario for an accident, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
Thank you. I'll rephrase, Your Honor. Mr. Roman, you stated that you have done many expert accident reconstructions, is that correct?
That is very correct.
And in those reconstructions, have you ever encountered where a car strikes a guardrail?
Yes, I have.
And what happens when a vehicle strikes a guardrail in an automobile accident?
Well, it depends on the speed, but most of the time the guardrail prevents the car from sustaining large amounts of damage. Yes, there's still damage done to the car, but the reason there are guardrails is to prevent terrible accidents like this one from happening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Roman. Your Honor, we've allowed that Mr. Roman be allowed to return to the witness box. And permission to retrieve the demonstrative, Your Honor. Mr. Roman, you stated previously that you came to a conclusion in this case.
Yes, I did.
And would you mind telling this jury your findings?
Sure. Danny Dawson was traveling on Canyon Road, was traveling about 51 miles per hour when he saw an object which he swerved out of the way. The rut marks show that are consistent with someone swerving out of the way of an oncoming object. He drove us across the side of the road and then spun once trying to re-enter the road. and spun off and fell into the ditch and hit the utility pole in the tree, which would then rectified later as the guardrail was extended and the trees were cut down.
And in that conclusion, Mr. Roman, was Danny Dawson completely at fault in that accident?
I do not believe so.
Thank you. No further questions, John.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you please introduce yourself to the court?
I am Danny Dawson, and I am currently a student at Hopkins College.
Could you please describe your educational background?
I was a student at Hopkins College, and I was just an A- away from getting a 4.0 in school.
How else have you been doing in school?
I've been doing fairly well, and I got involved with student government.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance?
We're just establishing character of the witness, or we're establishing the, introducing the witness to the court.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
How Miss Dawson is doing in school really has no relevance to her outside of school activities, or, which is what we're discussing here.
You can establish who she is and what she does.
Okay.
And the objection sustained.
Just right?
Yes.
Now, how did you come to know Vanessa Sullivan?
We had the same major as each other, and we met in sophomore year of school, and I discovered she was just like a really cool person and easy to talk to about my personal interests.
What are your personal interests?
I wanted to be a lawyer.
Again, Your Honor, objection, relevance.
This establishes her relation to the victim at hand, which
Uh-huh.
does.
Her personal interests. She can say that she lived in shared personal interests.
It can speak to the culpability of the.
Objection sustained.
Okay.
And on that note, we are going to have to take a short recess. I had throat surgery last week. I'm bleeding.
And we had a couple of classes together, and we discovered we had very similar interests, and those interests led us to bond and have really good friendship.
Now, the night of September 24th was Vanessa Sullivan's 21st birthday. How did you come to attend that event?
She mentioned it around me, and we talked a little bit about it, and we found out that we lived close to each other. And I didn't have a car, and she knew that. She offered me a ride back.
Now, what time was this celebration supposed to start?
It was supposed to start around 7.
Where was it supposed to be at?
Chucky's.
What did you do prior to this party starting?
I had an interview for an internship before, and it was right next to Chuggy's, so I just decided to go to Chuggy's right afterwards.
Now, what time was this?
It was about 2.
Why did you go there so early?
Again, it was right next to where my interview was, and I didn't have a ride back home, and I was checking up on my friend Jordan James.
Now, who is Jordan?
Me and Jordan James met, and he
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance again.
We'll be establishing relevance shortly. This is dealing exactly with the issue at hand, though, the events that occurred that night.
We'll give a little bit to establish where you're going with this. Then we may for right now.
I'm sorry, how do you know who is Jordan James?
We met last summer when we were on a summer softball league together, and I had an internship.
Now, was this person there when you arrived?
Yeah, we found out that I found out from Jordan that she was opening up for the band Chatterbox. It was a big deal. It's the biggest gig she's ever had in her life.
What happened next?
We may have had a drink
what did you do between the time that you got there and the time that Vanessa got there?
Well, I sat around Chuggy's just hanging out, and I read a novel from about 2 to 7, and I had a few drinks throughout the course of about like 5 hours.
And what time did Vanessa and Taylor get there?
They showed up around 7.
Now, did you expect anyone else to attend?
Well, it was her 21st birthday, so I honestly assumed there were going to be more people.
Now, how did this night start off?
We had dinner together.
What happened after that?
I went and spoke with Jordan for a little bit longer.
What time was it at this point?
It was around 9:30.
Now, was there any particular event that was going that night?
Chatterbox was playing, which is one of my favorite bands.
What time did they take the stage?
Around 10.
Now, what did you do after Chatterbox finished its set?
Well, somehow I managed to get backstage and talk to him, and Vanessa and Taylor joined me.
What happened after that?
I ended up getting on stage and playing a little guitar.
Now, what time was Vanessa supposed to be home?
She needed to be home around 1.
So what time did you leave?
We left at about 12:35.
Now, at this point, who was supposed to drive?
Well, earlier it was never exactly told who would be the designated driver, but I was fine to drive by the end of the night, and I was the one that was driving.
And how were the weather conditions outside at this point?
It was raining very heavily outside.
And what way did you take going back?
I took Canyon Road.
And whose car was this, by the way?
It was Vanessa's.
Had you ever driven a car like this before?
No.
So, how was the driving back?
Well, Canyon Road is a little bit curvy. So, in order to get Vanessa home, I drove a little fast, but and we drove on Canyon Road, and I saw a light in the distance, and it caught my attention for just a slight second, and then I looked back, and there was a deer coming towards us.
How did you react?
I thought about it, and I wasn't sure if hitting the deer would hurt all of us or not. So I took the chance of missing the deer so I could save everybody. So I turned the wheel this way, and then to get it back on the road, I lost control of the car. And we went down the embankment, and
Miss Dawson, what did you do after the car crashed?
I panicked and got out of the car and tried to run towards where that light was from and tried to talk to the owner of that house, but before I could get up the embankment, the owner stopped me and said that they had called 911 for me.
Now, what happened to Taylor Hobson?
Taylor was a little shaken up herself, and she was crying for help, and I went and helped her out of the vehicle.
Miss Dawson, what happened to Vanessa Sullivan then?
Vanessa was unresponsive, and she passed away before she could make it to the ambulance.
What was your state of mind after this?
disbelief. I couldn't believe that this was happening to me and my friends.
What happened after you helped helped Taylor out of the vehicle?
The ambulances and the cops were coming, and the cops started making me do tests, and all the while I was hearing Vanessa's mom screaming at me.
Who is Vanessa's mother?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. Vanessa's mother really has nothing to do with this case.
This is the mother, establishing who this mother is and the importance of her actions on Miss Dawson during giving a field sobriety test is very relevant to the outcome of that field sobriety test.
I'll give you a little room to establish how this is relevant, but we're going to rejection.
Who is Miss Sullivan?
She's a district attorney.
Now, what happened that following week?
Vanessa's funeral was on the 29th.
Did you attend that funeral?
I did.
Why did you go?
Because, Your Honor, objection, Your Honor. Again, with the relevance.
I actually agree. I don't see why she went to the funeral.
It does speak to the portion of the charges against her regarding her value of human life.
Your Honor, I don't believe that a person going to a funeral is just automatic proof that you value human life.
That's why it's an elaboration.
The objection in the system.
Okay.
There's a strike, Your Honor.
Yes.
Ms. Dawson, how was your condition throughout that evening?
I was during the night of Vanessa's. I was fine. I wasn't drunk.
Thank you. No further questions at this time.
Cross-examination.
May I proceed? Ms. Dawson, this isn't your first DUI charge, is it?
Objection, Your Honor. This is improper character evidence testifying to the past history of Ms. Dawson.
Your Honor, Ms. Dawson's past with DUI is very much the relevant and a crucial piece of information to this trial because she's being charged with the same thing.
They're required under Rule 404 to present this in pretrial, but they will attack Ms. Dawson's prior character.
That is correct. It should have been presented in pretrial that you were going to